told tons of people these stories. Never shared them here, but the gist is that my elementary school friend grew up in a haunted house. I went over almost every day, so I saw weird shit all the time. Here are a few that stand out. Rural Texas. Friend lives in a 2-story house, kind of old and beat up looking. One day we're walking home from school. As we reach his house, we see a woman in the upstairs window. She's wearing a blue dress, has blonde curly hair, and is very pretty. She's also smiling at us, but we're scared because nobody else is supposed to be home, latchkey kids. Friend decides fuck it, he's going to go in and talk to her. I wait outside BC, I'm a pussy. Keep my eyes on the pretty lady. Watch as she steps out of the view, and 3 seconds later my friend appears in the window. Where'd she go, Anon? He should have seen her, but didn't. I run inside and meet him upstairs. We both notice the room smells really strongly of cinnamon. Another one. At friend's house after school. We're playing action figures in the backyard. Nobody's home but us. We hear a horse snorting and neighing. Sounds agitated. We look around, but of course there's nothing there. We see dust kicking up off the ground and hair stomping, followed by more neighing. We run the fuck inside and watch through the window as invisible ghost horse stomps the ground. There were plenty of other things. They're all very random and most are minor. More of a nope story than a spook story. I've shared it before, but I wanna bump the thread, so here it is. Grow up poor. Mom is a nanny to a little rich kid named Lucas. One summer, I accompany Mom to Lucas' house. She's gotta be there the whole day watching him. Me and Lucas are the same age, so we just play all day long. Video, action figures, etc. Lucas decides, hey, let's go swimming. Hell yeah, I love swimming. This kid's got a giant pool in his backyard with a water slide and everything. Even has a short diving board, but he's afraid of jumping from it. I'm not. Dive a few times, and he refuses to do it, so I call him a chicken. Eventually it's time to go home. Let's swim again tomorrow, Lucas says. Bet. Next morning. Excited to swim, grab my trunks and goggles. Mom gets a phone. It's Lucas' mom. Sorry, but I had to leave for work early today. I locked the front door, so just go around back. I left a key under the mat. Fast forward. We pull up to the house and walk around back like Lucas' mom told us to. Back there, the pool is shining in the morning sun, calling my name. Then I notice something over by the diving board. Hey, Mom, what's that? I point. Mom looks and walks over. She stops. Screams like a harpy out of hell. Oh shit. She fumbles for her phone. Calls 911, shaking, telling me to keep away from the pool. But I'm a little kid, I wanna see. I run over. Stay away, Anon. Too late, I've seen him. It's Lucas. He's lying on the ground, pale and wet. His hair is still dripping water. A pool of blood all around the back of his head. Eyes wide open. Mom pulls me away. He was dead before the ambulance pulled up, and probably before we got there. I always thought he was a spoiled brat, but seeing him dead was terrible. I kept thinking of how I kept laughing at him for being afraid to dive, calling him chicken. I feel responsible for his death to this day. My stepmother has many stories from my country. Rural people there don't necessarily believe in entities like duendes, evil gnomes. They mainly believe in natural powers, some of which they understand, and some that they don't. They wouldn't call these natural powers the devil, unless there was some priest around. Also, in the countryside you really need to walk a lot to get from place to place, sometimes up to 10 hours. So they have some rules about traveling, like don't walk down desolate paths between midnight and sunrise. This is common sense, since you can be attacked by thieves or animals. But also, it's believed that you can be attacked by nature itself. Nature isn't always a bad thing, but it can be more dangerous when you are alone, or if you are not strong enough to handle it. My stepmother went to visit a friend in an isolated village. She traveled by foot, carrying her baby daughter on her back. A few days after, she decides to head back to her own village. Her friend tries to convince her to stay. It's too late to go out walking, and you have to take many lonesome routes. My stepmother says, "It's fine. I'll walk along a less lonesome path. There is one isolated route that I'll have to take, but it should be close to sunrise by the time I reach it." They said their goodbyes and my stepmother goes on her way. She takes a rural path, with many curves, bordering a small cliff. It's only 3 a.m. by the time she hits the most solitary route leading back home. Well, it's only an hour or so before sunrise. I'll keep going. The path looks secure. The birds are beginning to wake up, when suddenly my stepmother feels a deep terror. She starts to tremble but keeps walking. Her baby seems stiff, like it's frightened but doesn't dare cry. Suddenly, stepmother realizes the bugs have gone quiet. Everything is dead quiet, even the wind. She is about to round the curve, when she bumps into something. She described it as looking roughly like a man, about 3 meters in height. It's covered in darkness, not black clothes, just total darkness. She never describes its face much. When she talks about it now, you can feel how uncomfortable she feels trying to describe it. She felt a sense of danger, but not evil. This is accompanied by a deep sense of dread. My stepmother remembers its eyes, because she was there for a long moment, and the figure never broke eye contact. She stepped back and lost a sandal, then began running back to her friend's house. Days later, she went back to the same road, but at a better hour, not after dark. She found her sandal in the exact place where she lost it. She never dared to walk out during bad hours again. 2 more. 1. During the late 80s. Dad used to work night shift at a warehouse. Heading home from work at 1 a.m. Stops at a food stand for late dinner. While waiting, Dad notices people in the street staring and pointing at the sky. He looks up and has the most noteworthy moment of his life. He sees what he still describes as gargoyles. Definitely not birds. Wings like bats or pterosaurs, human-shaped, almost translucent. They seem to glide or hover through the air. People watched the creatures for about 5 minutes. 2. Had a friend tell me a story. He's from southern Texas right by the border. Be 12 years old. Visiting grandma out in the middle of rural southern Texas. Sitting down for dinner, all gathered together. A large rock smashes through the window into the dining room. Everyone gets up to look outside. Just on the other side of the window, 2 skinny-looking dogs are speaking to each other in an unknown language. The dogs look at the family and slowly walk away into the darkness of the desert. Freaked me out when he told me, figured I'd share it. Perhaps it isn't spooky for everyone, but this is something that I witnessed in my teen years. Be me, 16 years old. Went hunting somewhere in the northeast of Mexico. Went with an uncle and cousin, but they're irrelevant. Plan was to stay there hunting a day and a half and return home. We were hunting together but with no luck, a few rabbits but not anything bigger in sight. Uncle decides it'll be good to split in order to cover more area and maybe this way spot something good. Okay, I guess. Went to a thick part of the forest and climbed a tree to have a better view of the area. Fell asleep. Woke up in the middle of the night, freezing. Shit. I was about to get down and return to the camp, and then I heard something. Chain rustling sound not too far from where I was and some voices. Decided to stay on the tree and try to look for the source of the sound. Catched a glimpse of light from what appeared to be a torch about 100 to 120 meters away from me. WTF, the forest wasn't a camping area and that part isn't very known. Climb down real slow and quiet to get closer to the light. As I get closer I start listening to what can only be some kind of chanting in Spanish. Finally get really close. I was scared shitless but wanted to see. About 10-15 people in a circle, white loose clothing, not robes, no shoes, all carrying machetes and other blunt weapons. Single small torch in the middle of the circle. Then I hear the chain rustling again. On the ground besides the torch there was this young woman, looked about 20, naked, strapped to the ground somehow. Looked bruised and hurt, blood coming from her nose. What shocked me most was how broken she looked, hopeless, hollow, no signs of life even though she was breathing. What I assume was an older woman started cleaning her up while others chanted. Chanting was not really loud so I couldn't hear most of it. Abra la puerta, open the door, came a few times, rest was unintelligible. Then it hit me like a bucket of cold water. I wasn't supposed to be there. I knew what that looked like but there's nothing I could do. Started coming back really slow, laying low, trying to not make a single sound. About 50 meters from them I couldn't stand it. Turned around and aimed my rifle at the general direction of the light from the torch. Shoot. Heard nothing but absolute silence after the shot. This is bad. Started running like hell back to the camp which was pretty far away. Never turned back, never looked back. Finally arrived to the camp, uncle asks me where the fuck I was. Tell him everything. We need to leave right now. Cousin asked him why but he never answered, just told us to shut the fuck up about it and never tell anyone about this. Okay then. Packed everything quickly and left. It was about 3 to 4 a.m. when we left. My uncle drove like we were being chased, and perhaps we were. Never saw anything in the local news. With all the girls disappearing in this country it's hard to track things like this. It haunts me to this day and feel so guilty about it. Thinking about the nature of my spiritual experiences. If you wanna hear a tale, I got a two-parter for you about the first time I ever did a past life regression. So here's the story. Well, my first time doing so I fell into a deep dreamlike state and came out in a very vibrant forest of greenery. Rich in scents of spruce, fern and cedar. There was a sort of lightly trodden trail that I followed to a pond. It was kind of murky but I saw something glinting at the bottom and when I bent to look I slipped and fell in. At first I panicked because I forgot to breathe and was sinking and couldn't move, but after I realized I wasn't choking on the water and it wasn't even cold I sank to the bottom of the pond and landed in front of a sunken stone building, and after swimming in the doorway and down the stairs and back up again I came to this chamber where there was a number of statues of men and women. They seemed familiar but all their faces had been broken off and I couldn't help but feel incredibly sad about this fact, as if someone broke something very dear to me. Walking through that building I realized there was 16 on either side of this large chamber and one empty space at the end of the hall with a cloth-covered hole that had broken through the wall. When I wandered into the hole it took it deeper in where it was cool and dark. Things crawled in the dark past my feet, and as I rounded the last corner I came into a much smaller room with a single black mirror. It reminded me of obsidian really, and it was shaped like a black sun with 13 long spiky rays and 13 shorter spiky rays with faint spirals etched into the edges by the rays. What happened next scared the shit out of me because as I got closer and saw my reflection I reached out to touch it and the reflection dragged me into the mirror. I felt like I fell for a very long time until I landed on a grassy lawn with ill-maintained flower beds and an aging house that looked like it had been patchworked together from various points in history. The front porch resembled like a 1800s whitewashed plantation house, but it had Grecian pillars of marble and a cobblestone tower sticking out the top crookedly with a glass roof and a single long tube sticking out of it. When I knocked on the door it just swung open and I could smell the mildew and dust. The air was stale and had overpowering pungent odor that wafted as if someone was cooking something noxious in the kitchen. I attempted to call out for someone but no one answered me directly. I just heard a creepy giggling and footsteps. Creaking doors and such heavily slamming far away. Freaked me out enough I ended up rushing out the back door to be fronted by a woman with the most pale skin and black hair plucking flowers. Her eyes were like coal and her gaze made my blood run cold as she told me that who I was there to find was in the house. Getting the feeling I didn't want to piss her off, I wandered back inside and started wandering around again until I found a room that opened up into a very lush tropical enclosure with its own tiny sun floating overhead. There was birds and such so loud in the background and the smells here were much nicer, but the noises were odd because I felt like I should have heard them back inside the house when I was there before. I did eventually after wandering around and tripping over a root run into who I was meant to meet. I was helped up and we sat and talked. I wish for the life of me I could remember precisely what she said, but I remember when she touched my forehead at the end she smiled and told me to come back whenever I wanted. I woke up just after that and asked how long I had been down and was informed only about 20 minutes. But it felt so much longer.